بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه. So first, thank you to Mulsa for inviting me here to speak. It's really an honor to be back at Georgetown. When you leave law school, you never really want to come back. It's been somewhat eerie to be back in these rooms, sitting where I was cold called 10 years ago. But if you're going to come back to law school, this is the way you want to come back. Seeing so many Muslim students at Georgetown contributing to this school and getting ready to contribute to our society at large. So, Jazakum khair to all of you, and thank you again for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and an honor to be here. I know that I am the only thing standing between us and hearing from Imam Zaid Chakra, so I will try to be briefer than lawyers usually are, inshallah. I was asked to come here tonight to discuss the systemic discrimination, the systemic bigotry, both from the government and private actors that not only the Black community, but in particular the Black Muslim community has faced for decades. That is a difficult discussion for me to have. And as I was trying to prepare for this, I really was having trouble deciding what to say. And the reason is that when I think of the Black Muslim community, and in particular Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, may Allah have mercy upon them, I don't think of them as victims. I don't first think about what was done to them. I think about what they did. I think about what they accomplished. I think about how they overcame all the challenges they faced. It's very difficult for me to have a conversation about the Black Muslim community and think about what we suffered. I can only really talk about what we accomplished. Nonetheless, there are absolutely incredible challenges that the Black Muslim community in particular has faced for decades, that we continue to face today. And in fact, I would say that many of the challenges my organization deals with, CAIR, are really milder versions of problems that the Black Muslim community confronted 10, 20, 30 years ago. And so what I wanted to discuss briefly tonight, inshallah, are some of the challenges that the Black Muslim community faced years ago, how those challenges are somewhat similar and different to the challenges we're dealing with today, and then most importantly, how the Black Muslim community, in particular Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X, overcame some of those challenges. The first thing I want to note, though, before I dive into that, is the irony of today. It's the second day of Black History Month. We're here to discuss Black Muslim history and racism and discrimination, and you all saw what happened today. I was outside the Capitol building earlier today with other Muslim organizations, Arab organizations, Iranian organizations, and we were discussing the U.S. House's decision to kick Ilhan Omar off of the House Foreign Relations Committee. Now, the Speaker of the House's explanation for this is, well, we had to do this because she has made anti-Semitic remarks in the past, and so she can't serve in the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Well, that is ludicrous, as we all know. The real reason they kicked her off the committee, is because she is Black, because she is a Muslim, because she is a woman, because she is a visibly Muslim woman, and because she is outspoken, in particular about Palestinian human rights, the third rail of American politics. If Kevin McCarthy really cared about anti-Semitism, he would condemn Donald Trump, he would kick Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar off their committees, and he'd apologize for tolerating their nonsense for all these years. But he doesn't do that. It's much easier to smear and silence a Black Muslim woman who speaks up about Palestinian human rights. And so what we saw happen to Ilhan Omar today is part of a long pattern of people singling out and targeting, attempting to silence and suppress the Black Muslim voice, dating all the way back to the 1960s and beyond. Now, when we think about what happened long ago with Brother Malcolm and Muhammad Ali and others, the difficulties they faced, the challenges they faced came from both government and private actors. From the government, they had to deal with everything from spying, infiltration, entrapment, deliberate attempts to sow division within their ranks, and of course, character assassination. All of this engineered and coordinated, not by some hate group, but by the government itself, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, other government agencies. When we think about Brother Malcolm X, you have to start, of course, with this time in the nation, right? Now, even though we all know that the Nation of Islam, got many beliefs wrong and was not quite a proper Islamic faith movement, they still were the first group of people in mass who identified as Muslim in America. And they did adopt many of the normal Islamic practices, like a belief in lifting the community up, brotherhood, discipline, sisterhood. And that really scared the heck out of the establishment in America. because what they were saying, what Malcolm X in particular was saying, was that there should be Black unity, that Black people have the right to defend themselves physically if necessary, and that the civil rights movement was not going to solve the problems of Black America. And so what the government did to try to nip this movement in the bud was first, of course, to spy, to know what they're doing. So sending informants into the nation to track what they were doing, what they were planning. Number two was not only spying, but infiltrating. That is sending people into the organization who would pretend to be members and then would try to undermine the organization from within, right? That could be from anything from trying to make sure to sow division within the organization, trying to find opportunities to undermine their campaigns, their efforts, things they plan to do, and also entrapment. That is when you go to someone and they have no plan of their own to do something bad, but you try to convince them to do something bad, and then you arrest them at the last minute. So this was something that Malcolm in particular was a target of, both before and after he left the nation. We just found out a few years ago that when he passed away, when he was assassinated, he was at that very moment the target of a very systemic and coordinated attempt to spy upon, infiltrate, and undermine him. One thing we learned is an NYPD officer who passed away several years ago. On his deathbed, he confessed and wrote a letter confessing this, that he had worked with the FBI to, number one, entrap two of Malcolm X's most trusted bodyguards, convince them to supposedly take part in some plot, terrorist plot, and they were arrested several days before Malcolm was killed at the Audubon Ballroom. Number two, one of the bodyguards, this NYPD officer who was spying on Malcolm, was there as his bodyguard when he was assassinated. That is one of the people who was dedicated to protecting him was an NYPD officer who was actually there to spy upon him. Now, his family revealed all this, called for an investigation, and as you might imagine, nothing has happened. The Manhattan District Attorney said, we'll look into this. We reached out to the FBI, DOJ, and they said, we can't do anything because the Manhattan DA is looking into it, which is ludicrous, right? But what he experienced and whatever really happened to him in his death, we still don't know all the answers, but we do know for sure that he was the victim of a very targeted, systemic campaign to spy upon, entrap, and undermine his efforts, especially when he started talking about global Muslim unity and global Black unity, right? Which is where he was going at the end of his life, moving from just this kind of localized Black versus white thing to say, no. Racism is an international problem that can be solved with international Black unity, and that also the Muslim community must be united across race, across borders, across nationalities. That was a really scary thing for the establishment. And it's quite possible that, in addition to a steadfast speaking up for true Islam, got him killed and got him alive in paradise. And then Muhammad Ali, lesser known, but he was also a target of government spying and other such things, but the government had it easier with him. Because as you know, when he decided he was not going to be drafted to fight in Vietnam, they had a very easy opportunity to destroy his career, throw him in jail. And he knew that. He knew what was going to happen to him going in, but he still refused to bow down to the federal government. He refused to go and fight and kill people who had done nothing to him. Now, alhamdulillah, he didn't have to go to jail, but he lost the best years of his career, waiting and getting kicked out of the boxing arena. This is what he had to deal with, right? This is what he was confronted with, what he had to suffer. And again, what people were so afraid of with these two individuals was not only the fact that they were famous, but that they used their fame to advance positive causes, to challenge the establishment, to say that we believe that Black people have the right to stand up on their own 2 feet, to be outspoken, to be united, and to defend themselves. Change their name, change their religion. You know, even today, that stuff ruffles feathers. Imagine the 1950s, 1960s, how crazy it was for Cassius Clay to change his name to Muhammad Ali, to Malcolm X to go on national television and say that white people were the devil, which they're not, but that's what he said, and that Black people have the right to put people in their graves if they laid a hand on a Black person, right? That would have been crazy to say today. It was really crazy to say so long ago. And so the challenges they face for speaking the truth are, to be frank, much milder than the challenge that Muslims face today. We really have nothing to complain about as Muslims in America today. Yes, we have challenges. Yes, we have to confront them and take them seriously, but we can learn from the example of those who came before us as we confront modern challenges. And so the 3 things I want to note that I take from Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, and others, lessons that I take as I try to do my work today, 3 things. Number one is I would say courage, but it's not really courage it's talking about. Because both of these men, it wasn't that they had some unique lack of fear of people, it was that they feared Allah more than anything else, right? And that freed them to say, yeah, I'm going to take the risk of going to jail if I'm not going to fight in Vietnam. Yeah, I'm going to take the risk of dying if I go out and testify that there's only one God and Muhammad, may peace upon him, from the 7th century, not from the 20th century, is the last prophet of God, right? They knew that their career, their lives were in danger by going out and testifying to the truth. But they had this firm faith in Allah that allowed them to fear no one else, right? And so as we in America face the threat from the far right, who would like to deprive us of our rights, deport us, suppress us, silence us, sometimes kill us, that ability to not be afraid, to say that bring it on, but we don't fear you, we fear something much greater than you, is liberating. It's free and allows us to keep doing our work unencumbered. And at the same time, we're under pressure from the far left to give our values in exchange for popularity, to embrace the extremes of social liberalism, to be accepted and be popular. That's a real threat too. And we have to have the taco to say, no, we are not going to give up a single aspect of Islamic teachings to be accepted by you, to be popular, to get elected to office, to win an Oscar. Keep your Oscar, keep your congressional seat, right? We are Muslims and we are not going to be apologetic Muslims, right? That is a lesson we can take from Brother Muhammad, from Brother Malcolm, and a lesson that I think some of us have not always held on to. And I say that even about myself, that we make so many compromises to be popular. In our civil rights activism, I tell you, we do that. And to be frank, I'm tired of doing that. I'm tired of feeling like a coward. And so I think what we as Muslims have to do in the coming months and years is stand up to anyone who would threaten not only our community, but any other community. We have to say that justice is not just for us, but for all people. And we have to stand up for justice in an Islamic way, as they did once before us. Second thing that I learned from them is, ironically, humility. Because when you think of Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, the first thing you really might not think of is humility, right? They were both very brash, very bold. And some people would, I guess back in the day, racist people would say they were uppity, because they simply stood up for themselves and said the truth without caring what you thought about the truth, right? But that wasn't arrogance. In fact, they were deeply humble people. And that is seen in their ability to admit when they were wrong and change their mind and radically change their position about something, right? Brother Malcolm went through so many changes in his life, right? So many evolutions. And because he always had that humility to admit when he was wrong about something, and when he saw the truth, what he believed to be the truth, he would embrace it wholeheartedly. So when he was in jail, right, he was an atheist. He was virulently opposed to religion in general, did not believe in God. But when he was confronted with teachings from the Nation of Islam, he recognized some truth in that. And he said, I'm going to accept this fully, right? Even though it meant leaving a life that I had to that point. And he was fully dedicated to what he believed to be the truth at that time. No matter what anyone had to say about it, no matter how difficult it was, he was fully dedicated to what he thought was the truth. And then when he found out it wasn't completely the truth, when he went to Mecca and saw white Muslims and Asian Muslims and realized that no, white people aren't devils, that anyone can be a Muslim, that there's only one God, that he's never come to earth, and that the last prophet of God was Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, he had no hesitation in radically changing publicly what he believed and what he stood for. And that took humility, right? And that is something that we can learn from. Muhammad Ali, definitely someone who was bold and brash, but one of the beautiful things about him is that even when he was beating people up, even when he was out there, saying all those poems and all that stuff, he would always say, I can only accomplish what I'm accomplishing by the will of Allah, right? He always acknowledged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even before he left the nation. And after he left the nation, after years after Brother Malcolm was killed, he had the humility to, number one, admit he was wrong in not supporting Brother Malcolm when he left the nation. Number two, he had the humility to actually apologize for many of the insulting things that he had said about other boxers, like Joe Frazier and others. He makes really racist remarks about other boxers as part of the lead up to their matches, right? He later realized and admitted, I was wrong to say that. And in fact, the really, impactful thing that he said is he actually said that he believed that Parkinson's was actually I don't know if he said it was a test or a punishment from Allah, but he said Allah gave this disease to me to remind me that he is the greatest. And to even say that, to think that, takes a great deal of, I think, humility that we, I think, have to learn as individuals, as human beings, and as so many Muslims think that we've got it all figured out. I'm 20 years old and I figured out things about Islam and humanity that that people who have been on this earth for 60 years don't know, correcting scholars and all this stuff. It really takes humility to progress as a person. And so that's something that I think we all have to learn from as we do our work. And the last thing is the dedication to always learning more, because they were able to evolve because they never rested on their laurels. They never thought, I know everything there is to know. They always accepted there was something more to learn, more people to learn from. And so whether we're doing civil rights activism, whether we're law students in our, the height of our career, there's always something more that we can learn as professionals, as Muslims, as human beings, and that will keep us fresh and keep us advancing and progressing. And so again, as I think of these men, I find it really hard to talk about the difficulties they experienced because I'm so inspired by how they overcame the difficulties. And so as we move forward as a community, I just want us to say a few things. One, we should never think of ourselves as victims. Whenever I hear people say Muslims are marginalized in our organization, I say, take that word out. I hate the language of victimology. We have to be confident in how we present ourselves and how we speak of ourselves. We're not victims, we're not marginalized, we're not trying to get a seat at the table or get scraps from the table. We want to turn the table over and try to establish what we believe is a really just society and a just way of life. So we're not victims. Number two, that we never feel the need to compromise Islam, again, to be accepted or to be popular, because that way disaster lies. It was Ben Franklin, I think, who said, those who would give up liberties for security deserve neither. And I think the same is true. Those who would give up Islam for security deserve neither. And so we have to hold on to our faith. And through that faith, eventually, we will find success. Even if we're hated for a while, even if we're unpopular for a while, as Malcolm and Muhammad were, eventually they became beloved, right? To the point that Malcolm X's dear wife, who died in the 90s, her funeral was attended by the highest leaders of America. And of course, we all know that Brother Muhammad Ali is, of course, one of the most beloved figures in the world. And then finally, I think, is the embrace of cross-racial unity, cross-national unity as Muslims, right? The reason we are experiencing so many difficulties internally and externally, nationally and internationally, is we are divided, right? I'm from this country, you're from that country, I'm this school of thought, you're that school of thought, I'm this denomination, you're that denomination. The people who want to suppress us don't care if you are Sunni or Shia or Hanafi or whatever else, or whether you came from Syria or Iran or Malaysia. All they care about is you are Muslim. That's the bottom line. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will settle the differences between us. In the meantime, unity is the way we will confront the threat of global anti-Muslim bigotry. Unity is the way we'll advance justice in this country and the world. I can tell you, being an activist, we are under immense pressure to stop advocating for Palestine. We are under immense pressure to embrace the extremes of social liberalism. We are under immense pressure to go along to get along. My organization, CAIR, we're not perfect. I think we've made mistakes, as many other organizations have. But I will tell you, we are dedicated now, inshallah, to making sure that we try to reflect the best of the legacy of Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X. And I hope that you all, as you continue through law school, you think about what you're going to do in your life, you take these lessons from Malcolm and Muhammad Ali and instill them in yourself, of humility, of the belief in unity, of the dedication to standing up for what is right and against what is wrong, and fear of knowing but Allah. And you will find success that way. Sooner or later, no matter what career path you choose, no matter what you do in life, inshallah, that way lies success. So I want to thank you all for having me today. It's really an honor to be back at Georgetown with all of you, and I'm so excited to turn it back over to your dear president so we can hear from Imam Zaid, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.